case of J.R. and Jeremy Steinke have fascinated audiences across North America since 2006. The murder of J.R.'s family in cold blood happened in the small town of Medicine Hat, approximately 300 kilometers from Calgary. J.R. used to be a happy girl. She was a straight-A student with lots of friends, a vibrant personality, a happy home life, and involvement in community activities. Jeremy, well, he came from a bad home. He lived in a trailer with his alcoholic mother. His father and his stepfathers used to abuse him on a regular basis. His mother would go on week-long drinking binges and leave him at home alone. He was bullied at school, with students and other teachers calling him Stinky. No one would suspect that these two different people would hit it off and start a 2-month relationship that would end with them killing JR's family. JR started hanging out at the mall and became friends with some of the goths there. She began to transform into a goth. She started posting provocative pictures on her Nexopia and Vampire Freaks account, including a picture of her holding a fake gun. She started dressing older and more provocatively. It didn't help that she had developed early and looked more like a 15 or 16-year-old when she was really just 11 years old. Her grades started to drop and her school friends started to feel distant from her. Jeremy, he was tired of being bullied and feeling outcasted. He became a goth because he knew he would not be judged by other goths. It was the only place that he fit in. He started wearing band t-shirts, dog collars, and baggy jeans. He started hanging out with another goth group that frequented the mall. He started to believe that he was a 300-year-old werewolf, and he started carrying a vial of blood around with him. Now, JR and Jeremy met through a mutual friend, and they hit it off. They decided to go to a punk show at the local community hall for their first date. They started talking on the phone, chatting over Nexopia, Vampire Freaks, and hanging out at the mall. JR's grades started to tank. Jeremy's friends were concerned about the differences in their age. JR's parents found out about the relationship several weeks in. They grounded JR, took away her laptop, forbade her from seeing Jeremy, and told her that she had to come right home after school. JR started going to the library during school hours to chat with Jeremy, and she would often call Jeremy around 2 or 3 in the morning. She started talking about wanting to kill her parents and run away with them, running away with Jeremy. After starting to bring her marks back and starting to talk to her old friends again, JR's parents decided to take her to a punk show as some kind of reward for being better and improving. JR, her parents, and her friend Aubrey went to a punk show. About halfway through, her parents and Aubrey noticed that JR was missing. Panicked, they started searching for her. They found her in an alley, making out with Jeremy. Enraged, her parents dragged her home and increased her punishment. JR and Jeremy continued to communicate secretly. However, the conversations became more violent and sexual. Jeremy started writing poems about slitting her parents' throats. JR would write emails such as sex, 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 oh, and love. The two of them started planning a life together, away from her parents. JR started calling Jeremy, demanding that he fulfill the promise he made her and kill her parents. Jeremy was reluctant and tried to convince JR to find a different way for them to be together. J.R. maintained that the only way for them to be together would be for Jeremy to kill her parents. The night of the murder, Jeremy went to his friend's house. He, his friend Cam, and Cam's girlfriend drank a 2-6 of vodka and a bottle of vampire wine. After they drank, they snorted 2 grams of cocaine. Jeremy then took some ecstasy. He decided that he would go over and kill JR's parents. He loved her so much and would do anything for her. And this is what she wanted. He went to a friend's house and asked him for help. His friend, Grant, refused. Jeremy then borrowed Grant's phone to call Jordan, another friend, and asked for Jordan's help. Jordan also refused. Jeremy went to his house, drank some more beer, and grabbed a knife from his kitchen. He then made his way over to JR's house. Jeremy opened the basement window and climbed in, making enough noise to wake up JR's mother, Deborah. Deborah came down to see what had caused the noise. Jeremy stabbed Deborah 5 times on the stairs. Mark, JR's father, came running downstairs. Mark picked up a screwdriver from a workbench and attacked Jeremy. Jeremy and Mark fought for several minutes. Mark stabbed Jeremy once in the back, but Jeremy stabbed Mark 23 times. JR watched from the top of the stairs as Jeremy killed her mother. After Mark and Jeremy started fighting, JR ran upstairs and started choking her brother, Jacob. After Jeremy killed her parents, he went upstairs. It is unknown who killed Jacob. JR blamed Jeremy. Jeremy blamed JR. Jacob was found in his bed, covered with blood, with a toy lightsaber beside him. It is clear that Jacob tried to defend himself with it, which is one of the saddest elements in this case. After the murders, Jeremy threw up and ran out of the house. JR packed a bag and called a taxi to take her to Jeremy's trailer. When she got there, she found him cleaning out his truck. They called a girl who had a crush on Jeremy, Casey, to come over. Casey arrived, and they asked her to clean up the truck and ditch it somewhere. She took the truck and drove away. JR and Jeremy went to a friend's house where they had sex. The next day, they went to a house party where witnesses say that they were talking about the murders. JR spent the day sitting on Jeremy's lap and kissing him. The police believed that JR had been kidnapped. They put an alert out for her. After the party, JR and Jeremy talked to 3 of their friends. The 5 of them decided to drive to Saskatchewan so that Jeremy and JR could start their own life. The police went to JR's school and talked to her guidance counselor. As it was a police investigation, the guidance counselor opened up her locker so that the police could search it for clues. In the locker, they found a comic that JR drew depicting her family dying. The police changed her status from a victim to a suspect. JR and Jeremy spent the trip to Saskatchewan in the bed of the pickup truck. About 5 hours into the trip, they pulled over into a gas station to fill up. Jeremy and JR decided to have sex again. A police officer saw the truck and recognized it from the description that had been sent out. He called for backup. Several minutes later, they were arrested and being shipped back to Medicine Hat. In the interrogation rooms, the detectives told JR and Jeremy that they could pass notes to each other in the hopes that it would make them more cooperative and also to pick up some valuable clues. In the notes, Jeremy asked JR to marry him. She accepted. Once the trial started, and JR and Jeremy started blaming each other for the murder of Jacob, their relationship crumbled. Jeremy was found guilty of 3 counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. JR was found guilty of 3 counts of murder and sentenced to 6 years in prison and 4 years community supervision. In September 2011, JR began attending classes at Mount Royal University in Calgary, Alberta during the final years of her sentence. JR is believed to be the youngest person ever convicted of a multiple murder in Canada.